Hi, welcome to One Word a Day. I'm Sophie, your pilot into the universe of Chinese. We are going to continue. Well, in recent episodes, message is a little bit depressing because it talks about uniformity, conformity, erasing individuality, make everybody look the same, come to the same length, come to the same shape. So 整齐划一 or 一刀切, both of them are kind of like that. So 一刀切, cutting everybody from the same fabric, basically, same cut. But today, this 切 is going to be something different in 望闻问切. Wait, or is it a 望闻问切? 切, okay, 望闻问切. Okay, 望闻问切. Well, it sounds a little bit more rhythmic, right? Because there's more tonations in it. And tonation helps in the language users to pin down exactly that word. So if it's more tonation, like intonation, like more that embedded in a phrase, it will hear audibly, like more distinctive than going the same way or all flat. So 望闻问切 is pretty audulous. Is it called audulous? With more tonation fluctuations, so it's more melodic, right, in a sense. And today's message, 望闻问切 is 问切 is a little bit, it's the ancient diagnostic process. It came from Chinese medicine common practice that the doctors back then who were not really, I don't think there were this doctor training or certification process. I don't exactly know how somebody become a doctor back then. I don't think there were medical schools back then, but doctors who became known to the community as doctors would diagnose the patients with this basic human-to-human detection, like using the doctor's own sensors, sensing by look, listen, ask, and touch, like all these human sensors, because there are no machines back then or no labs to check on the microscopic level of what's going on inside your body. So these are human level, human sensor available to doctors back then. Okay, one, it's about to look. So it's observing how the patient look on the appearance. We have three components here. And apparently the sound from this wang means death. That's simplified into this character. Still looks kind of the same, right? And the yue, this is the moon symbol. So it kind of like crescent with this light within. So some energy over there. Eventually we know it's not really energy source. It's a reflection of the sunlight bounced off from the surface of the moon. But ancient times, we don't really know, right? Nighttime when we see the moon, it looks like something emitting from the moon to the earth, right? So the moon was captured in a similar structure, except it's a crescent shape. It also have this energy, this light source at least, coming to us. And then this is the bottom is a human figure sideways, standing on top of like a stacked up higher elevation ground. This two horizontal lines connected with one vertical line, and you have to pay attention. This one doesn't go through. This vertical line don't go through. It stop at the bottom layer. That image means soil. So somebody who is standing up on top of the soil, looking at the moon. And this one act as a sound maker, but I always would like to try to imagine the language creator when they pack the three images together and pick the one will be the sound maker here. Like what exactly in the mind of the language creator back then? Why? Wang. And when we say Wang, we don't, okay, we have a basic look character, which is cut, which have the eyeball symbol and something else. I don't exactly know, haven't looked at that further yet. But Wang is comparing to cut. Wang is, we have the moon there. That means you're looking on even beyond the horizon. You're looking something far away. And you're probably looking at it intensely and pondering over some philosophical life and death issues. So which is this death symbol. And this death symbol, I mean, we can also interpret it as somebody, this is a person, right, standing to the lower ground, which is the bottom left corner of the frame, like within the small frame. The bottom left corner means ground level. So somebody who is standing on the ground level, or somebody who's standing on top of a stacked up little hill, on top of the pile of soil, which is the soil here. So either way, you're on the lower ground looking at the moon. So that's the type of look. It's far sight, if not foresight, it's far sight. So it's like taking everything in a bigger scope, not to immediate close environment, but further away, to take the biggest scope of the environment, absorb everything in. So that's kind of Wang. And Wang, because, I mean, if we interpret it as not like standing on the lower ground, observing, but something related to that person eventually have this awareness of it's going to go underground one day. The death is approaching any second, the death is approaching, right? So like even I'm recording here, I know every second gone by, that's I'm closer to the other end of life's journey, right? So that sense of things are progressing and you're approaching from one end, starting point to the end point, that kind of existential anxiety or awareness, spatial awareness, and also this time, this lifespan awareness, while people looking at the moon, that kind of emotional trigger or spiritual trigger, that's the kind of imagery packed into one. But apparently in this context, it's a doctor's diagnosis of the patient. So it's not going to be like far away to look at a patient. But indeed, in ancient times, when a doctor check you out, it's just like a contemporary. It's pretty close face-to-face environment so that the doctor can observe what's happening to your face, your body, if you're shaking, your body posture, your gait, right? All that is going to be part of the diagnostic process. Okay, when we have the door sign and the ear symbol in between. So this is the abstraction of the ear. And you see when. Isn't that neat? Like both of them have similar sound, except this is a rising tone, this is a falling tone, and this is paired with ear, and this is paired with mouth. And both have shared a similar door frame. This is the 2-panel door frame. And apparently this door frame dominant as the sound maker. Like both are images, right? Both come with their own meaning, but who takes control of the sound, right? Apparently, because this door frame sound like men, it's an M, men. And now when paired with ear and mouth, it turned into wen. The M side flip upside down, become wen. And so I guess wen and the men, they're closer because it's ear. I mean, both of them are rising tone, but wen is falling tone. It converted a little bit more, right? Not only the M turned into a W, men becomes wen, and also the rising tone becomes falling tone, becomes wen. So that also is a good way to distinguish. So they come, both of them, with a door frame and the sensor organ of the person, right? So I would interpret it as this: both when listen and when ask have a door frame separate this listener and asker from the truth. So there's a sense of indirectness. When we say when, that means it's indirect hearing. You're not on the scene. You are not seeing what's really happening firsthand, direct experience. You are listening and kind of interpret by what, almost like a hearsay. You hearsay what other people relate to you, how things happened. And then you kind of draw a conclusion based on secondhand information. So this is, in this context of a doctor diagnose the patient, it's the doctor's direct interaction with the patient. But the doctor and the disease, that's an indirect. It's separated by the patient, because the doctor is not himself or herself, most likely himself, right? In ancient China, yeah, definitely. Ancient China, only male doctor, because females are not going to touch another person. Part of the job of the doctor is to touch the last character. So, okay, so just by that logic, most likely, okay, I cannot say anything absolute. It's male doctor. So the doctor is, and the disease, the doctor does not experience the disease on his own body. So the doctor is separating by this door of the patient. Through this door, this doctor can then try to kind of hear what the disease is doing to inside that door, inside the body of the patient. So this one have this indirectness because of the spatial separator of the door. And that's very reasonable of how we hear things, right? Because how many times we hear things in our own ears? Majority of the time, we hear things indirectly. On the news, on social media, on like people storytelling to us, it's all secondhand information. So in that sense, we win a lot. And actually in Chinese, we create the Chinese translation of news as if in the contemporary news reporting news as a 新闻, like a new news. 新 means latest happening, like breaking news, okay? And when is this secondhand hearing or listening? Okay, so that's the when. And the when is asking. So this is about communicating with the patient, how you feel. So in a way, it's kind of leading the patient to self-inspect, to report, self-report and self-inspect how the patient feel. So that's also this when. It's also an indirect way to get into the truth of things. It's you're separated. Imagine you just by this door, like you're outside the door, and you want to ask what's going on inside the door. You're not in there within that space to be with them, to see with your eyes. Otherwise, you probably don't need to ask. But because you're outside the door, you hear something or you sense something, you don't know what's going on inside, the only way for you is to ask, communicating verbally. So that's exactly that. So now we have this observation, looking at the patient, and listening. Here, it's specifically about listening to the speaking. Like while I'm speaking, if a trained Chinese doctor, I don't know how they train them though, listen to my verbal, to the air flow from my pronunciation. Like how do I sound weak, unsure, slow? Like all that speaking function comes with it. Packed a lot of a bio message regarding us, right? If we are have enough breath coming out of us, if we sound energetic or not. So that's part of that listening. It's not about asking about verbally what's happening to the patient, this conversation, right? This is listening on the layer of the message, the way it's delivered, how the message was delivered, through the breathing, through the energy, the whole communication, the second layer of communication, the format of the communication. And that's what's tuning in. That's the one. So again, indirect listening and indirect asking, because if you're not there, you have to ask, and somebody will tell you what's happening to them. So that's an indirect asking for information, right? And then, I mean, that's exactly ask, because you don't know, you're not there, or you don't live long enough to know what happened or something like that. So you have to ask somebody else to tell you about what they see, which is partial truth, and ask enough of people, all right? And that's ask, the essence of what it's asking about. And here, last time we talked about, this is knife, and this is number 7, cut things into 7 pieces. Here, it's not, it doesn't mean cutting with a knife. It's actually the doctors using their fingers to kind of like pressuring down. So this cutting probably have this from top down to the surface with pressuring down on the pulse of the patient. So this pulse reading practice, Chinese would use qie. I guess it involves with accuracy, right? You have to position correctly with the right pressure to sense, like consistently. After you've seen enough patients, probably you know exactly, like correlate how the pulse feels like to you, the speed, the strength of the pulse, correlate to the patient's illness. So that's 望闻问切, that's Chinese medicine's diagnostic process with this 4 aspects. I mean, Western doctors, they rely on a lot of contemporary machineries, laboratories to do the diagnostic work for them. And they do talk to you, they ask you how you feel, right? So in a sense, contemporary medical practice also involves with doctor look at you, check you, right? And they probably knock on you and use the, what's that thing? The thing to hear your heartbeat. They have some devices to check on you. And this pulse reading, not ever experienced here in Western medicine. But this is how things are done with caution. And pulse reading contemporarily is that blood pressure thing, right? It's kind of tightly wrapped around your arm to read your heartbeat speed, the heartbeat, and also the blood pressure all together, right? But ancient times, I guess this is blood pressure and also your heartbeat, heart rate, all in once, just by this 3 finger. I mean, how advanced is that? I wish the Western medicine can somewhat adopt a little bit of Chinese, this personal, because nowadays we heavily rely on machinery to do the diagnostic work for doctors. And in a way, yes, it's an extension of your capacity of understanding, like what's under the hood, what under your skin, what's within your bloodstream, right? But this kind of observation, personal or interpersonal observation from one human being to another human being to read what's going on within that body, that's an amazing practice being carried out for centuries or 1,000 years. I don't know exactly how long, but I wish, the 2 worlds are emerge somewhat. Chinese medicine take more of Western practice and vice versa. And so here are the 4 characters and the 4 organs or sensors involved. We have Wang, which is the eyes. It's a stylized, it almost looks like a Buddha's eye, but definitely not a Western eye. It's an Eastern kind of elongated and slanted. I guess that's the stereotypical Asian eye look. So that's look. And Wen is here, hearing, and you notice this elongated earlobe. That's a good fortune symbol. But this, anyway, is a stylized representation of ear. Hearing, and wen is asking, is talking, communication. And then qie is with this fingers. Again, it's kind of Buddha finger doing that, of qie, of detecting your pulse. Okay, there we go. 望闻问切. Catching the currency of thinking by one word a day with Sophie. See you another day.